Hello everybody. The time now is 6:30 p.m. Cameroon time, and I'm just logging in on this live video for today's session, which is the second session on study opportunities forum. I planned this session yesterday, but it couldn't hold because I had problems with my laptop, which I've not been able to fix even up to now. Welcome Nane, welcome Joyce, thank you. I would like to know if you are getting me clearly. The voice quality is the most important thing. We can disregard the image quality if it is not the best, because I'm doing this on my mobile, which is the first time I'm doing it on my mobile, because following yesterday's happenings, I was forced to struggle and download the Facebook application to my mobile phone, and thank God I succeeded in doing so. And so that's why I welcome Magnus, welcome Natalie, welcome Amos, teacher, welcome. So welcome Joyce again. Okay, fine, thank you. Welcome Imbu. So I hear the voice quality is good, so we really thank God for that. And we are going to set the ball rolling with questions, because finally, enfin, as they will say in French, I'm happy that the voice quality is good. My fear, because after downloading yesterday, I tried the video and it was good. At least it was good, though it was at night. But then I couldn't be very sure about the voice quality. So I would really appreciate, because after the session I did last I think 2 weeks ago or so, which was more focused on going to New Zealand, welcome Larissa, and on PhD scholarships in that country, there were a number of questions that people raised, welcome Kings, that people raised after that session. And I prefer, one of the reasons is that there are some questions that people can inbox to me, and I will try to find answers to them, because one of the first things I do is I can't pretend to know answers to all questions, but those I can answer, thank you teacher, I can always try to answer them. But those I don't know have answers for them, either I can try to look for answers, or if I'm unable to look for answers, well, I will then let you know that it's above me. But generally there are some questions that when you ask me inbox, I will beg that you bring them back here live, so that in answering them I will be answering both for you and for other viewers. That in that way we will be helping people, because helping people with your question, helping people with my answers, or helping people with my answers and your questions, because it's not just going to be a one-sided kind of thing. So I was wondering if any of the people who watched the last video and contacted me thereafter with questions, and I suggested we meet again and discuss the questions already, then they could type one of their questions in the comment box and we start with it. I will give about a minute or so, so that if anybody has a question they can set, and we start moving from there. Otherwise I may have to quickly take some of the questions that I was able to note in passing, and then we will go with them. Welcome Joy Vet, the entrepreneur, welcome. So any question for the moment? If there is no question for the moment, I would like to first of all talk, because somebody talked about this, was during the session and even after the session, somebody talked about this, the whole issue of first class, meaning the person was talking more about why the insistence on having the best performance, academic performance. So I try to answer that, but I will be coming back to it to repeat. Honestly, scholarships are based on competition. They are competitive, they are selective, and people who offer scholarships always want to make sure they offer to the best people, to the deserving people. And so one of the first major criteria that they can use to select best people who match their funding principles will be their academic performance. So and that's why a first class is usually, most of the times, preferable, but that is not not to say that people have not got scholarships if they had a second class offers, or even a second class offer. There are still some instances wherein you can have a second class offer, and you are still offered funding, but we have to know that that will more or less be exceptional. That will more or less be exceptional. But the general rule of the thumb is that they give to good results. But now some countries too also know about the other countries, and they know about how people are graded or scored in those countries. And there are some countries that may know that, okay, in country A, even when somebody has 12 on 20, it doesn't mean that the person is not very intelligent. It can still be because of the situation or the circumstances or the way grading is done in that country. So generally, having performed well, at least, because another thing is that in some scholarships you are asked to, they will tell you that they are looking for people who are in the top 5% of their class. So if you come from a school wherein generally people who graduate and they are even the best have 14s, and you come from among the top 5%, meaning you have a 13, and it can be proven, it means that if your university is contacted, if the department in question or the faculty or even the rector or the vice chancellor, if they are contacted, they will attest to that. They will confirm that, yeah, in this year these are the number of people who graduated, and this student was among the top 5%. That can still be good. So it's not just kind of generic to say so, but that's how largely speaking it operates. But now, the quality of one's research proposal and other activities, because one thing is always good to be polyvalent, to be able to do other things besides just purely focusing on academic work. Welcome, Nyamjo. So from that perspective, other things are taken into consideration, and that's why when applying, often you will be asked to provide your CV, your curriculum vitae, and then plus things like the personal essay, etc. So welcome, Palace. That was that for the upper second for about the honors issue. So honors is often asked, meaning that in countries like, let's take Canada, when you are applying for studies in most of their graduate programs, meaning a master's and PhD, they will tell you that they want people who have scored at least an A minus, and an A minus there is equal to 80%. So meaning that if you take your general average which you got, and you express it, you try to express it upon on 100%, you have to see where you fit in, and you see if you qualify upon that basis to apply. But it can still happen that in some cases somebody applies who has a 75%, but because of the other activities and accomplishments of that person, and the quality of their research proposal, the admissions committee, they are also human beings like you and me. They may, on the basis of these things, still give something to somebody, because it's not all about what you score. Then there was somebody who asked me a question about field work, because I think the person is interested in doing a PhD, and he was asking me about doing field work and whether it can be possible to do field work if he has a scholarship. Suppose he has a scholarship in Europe or in America, and he's from Cameroon, and he wants to do his field work, meaning that he wants to collect his data for analysis on in Cameroon. How will that be? So I was trying to explain to him, but I told him anyway to hold on, so we discuss it here today. In most programs, especially at the PhD level and even masters, if you have a full scholarship, the scholarship may also have conditions about where you are gathering your material for study. So for those that are flexible enough and say, okay, they are generous enough, they can fund your studies. So it means that when you set up a traveling plan to travel to your home country or to another country which you are researching, then there will be provision for either a partial funding of your traveling, or for a full funding of your traveling, since you are traveling in connection with your studies. But the first and most important thing would be that at the level of the application, you have to make it known, because you always have to anticipate and bring a research proposal that is nearly feasible or almost very feasible, doable, so that at that level it is good to already let them have an idea that your research will be done not only in the country that is hosting you for your scholarship, but also in your home country or in some other country. And then, like in some Nordic countries, they will even ask you to specify that. Welcome, sis Beltin, welcome, Bungo. So in some other countries, they will ask you, and like I said last time, for today I'm moving on and moving on and on and on in English, but anybody watching me who has a question and can speak only French should feel free to ask the question in French, and then I will answer it in French. But if no question is asked in French, I will move on in English as I'm doing now. So like I was saying, they will generally, some universities have it as a in their PhD programs and even masters as a kind of a role that you must study at least one semester or 1 month. You must spend some period abroad, and by period abroad I mean you must go to another university either in the same country or in another country or even in another continent and spend some 1 or 2 months or 3 months or an entire semester doing research there and participating in the research activities of that country. And so they will ask you to include that in your plan for the studies. And sometimes it can be asked that you do that even before you apply, but after you have applied you have to finalize it and make it much more workable with deadlines that you have to respect. So any question up to now? I'm just wondering if somebody already has a question to ask by now, because I'm trying to answer these questions which somebody raised the other time. That said, and I should now come to this question, which is welcome, I think. So I'm coming to this question, which was also raised by that person, though he raised it somehow indirectly, but this is one of the fundamental questions about studies, whether studying individually or that is sponsoring your studies, or studying by getting funding from a scholarship donor. Here what I want to say is this: somebody was asking me that he told me anyway that he is going to get his degree, he's expecting to get his degree around is it August or maybe July this year, and he was now asking me if starting now to prepare for his applications for scholarships will be a good thing and if it can be a priority. So I smiled because this is a very important question. Like with every other good thing in life, thank you, Dr. Imbo, thank you. So like with every other good thing in life, starting to plan and planning for that thing well ahead of time is always good. I think it is always bad if you plan late, but never bad to plan early. it is good and even almost better and moving towards best to plan earlier than to plan late. So you don't lose anything when you plan early, but you have lots of things to lose when you plan late. And so with this said, I would like to say briefly, generally speaking, I can say there are 2 categories of people when it comes to getting scholarships for their studies. There are some people who will just apply for their first scholarship and they get it. Well, those people are there. That's how life is. Just like in businesses, there's some people, they launched their first business and they just became millionaires from that business. It doesn't mean that they became millionaires overnight anyway. So I'm saying so because there's some guys now as we speak, especially in the pure sciences, technology, engineering, etc. If as we are talking now, somebody has a GPA, a grade point average of let's say 3.8 on 4 in engineering, first degree, and the person is working on, let's say for example, renewable energies, and everybody knows that climate change and environmental degradation are top priorities of this century, and that person has been doing some extracurricular activities in school and the person can prove that, and so the person applies, and the person is even taking part in an NGO, in a local NGO, either in school or in their community that is fighting against climate change or doing some other thing, and then this guy sees a scholarship for engineering. Welcome, Sister Viviana. Thank you. And the person applies with this kind of GPA of 3.8 or 0.9 on 4, and he is moving on with electrical engineering or renewable energies, which is very related, I honestly, that guy will be he can be taken. He can be taken if he's lucky. He's taken. But now there can also be somebody, like I was saying about the whole thing about first class degrees. You may have an upper second class, and you apply, though your idea looks so good. When you combine your idea with other aspects of your application, you may not be taken this year, but perhaps you'll be taken next year for the same program you applied for this year and you were not taking, because there were some guys who were stronger than you. Or as we say locally, that it's never good to carry your eggs in one basket. You may decide to apply in university A of country A and university B of country B, and so on and so. You can apply in 4 or 5 universities, 3 universities. And maybe with some slight changes in maybe the different things you want to do. But if you're very passionate, and I really prefer that people do things out of passion, if you are very passionate about your research topic or field of interest, I prefer to talk about field of interest, because when you have a research field of interest, within that same research field of interest, you can always carve out as many research proposals as possible. Otherwise, what is the use of research? Because it doesn't mean that after you've done your master's or you've done your PhD, you stop research. It means that you are moving into a career in research, and that means that you have research interest, and from there you can always be writing new articles and new books. So that's why I would even be preferring to talk about research interest, and so that you can play around with it and create other facets of it to research. So this said, it means that there are some people who have to apply. They may apply time and again before they get it, or you may just apply to the wrong thing. So we would have time again to talk about maybe checking the criteria, the eligibility criteria, first at the level of performance, and also at the level of even nationality and other factors and age factors, because some scholarships will say, okay, the age limit is this, but there are some that don't care about age, and so on and so forth, all this. And then there's some that they will list the countries from which they want people. There are some that are open to everybody. So all of these things will be discussed either later on today or maybe in a subsequent video. So therefore, as I was saying, like, you have to apply some of these things, if not all of them, and I'm sure they are all, which I'm trying to share today with people, are things I've gathered along the line. So it's experience built upon doing and redoing, or doing and getting what you don't really want and you don't take it, or you take it and you stop it. So from there you will learn lots and lots of things along the line. So the more you apply, the more you get the experience, and the more you get to exchange your ideas with people, to discuss them and see if they can help you bring in some input, so that you improve and make them fine and good before you submit. Well, today, if you look at the title, the title of the video is discussion, question and answer. And I really don't want to be the only person talking. I really want to get questions from the people watching. If there is a question, please, I would like to get a question so I can talk on it. Or if there is something I've already said so far and somebody still feels like they need more explanation on that thing, then they should feel free to let me know. So like I was saying, therefore, if you are getting your degree next August, already remember where. First of all, you want a scholarship. Where are you? Are you in Africa? Are you in Europe? Are you in America? And you want a scholarship in which country or in which continent? So these are questions you need to ask earlier. Once you ask them, where do you like to study and why do you like to study there, you begin to check their universities, or check the different domains, the different organizations that may want to offer you funding, because funding comes in different ways. There is funding given by organizations, then there are countries that have their government scholarship schemes, and then there are universities that have funding schemes within faculties and departments. So deciding all these things well in advance, and also checking the deadlines for application. Let's just say the North American continent. I will make a kind of general thing, but which is almost very true, in that most often applications for, because most graduate programs in North America, meaning the US and Canada, most of their PhD programs accept students for masters and PhD for the fall term, or the fall semester, which is usually around September or October. And usually what happens is that these applications against September and October of 2018 are going to be submitted between October and December of this year. So and most deadlines fall within December or early January. And sometimes some universities may accept up to February. Some may accept up to February, but on a condition that you are no longer applying for both admissions and funding. So all these things are things you have to calculate well in advance. And so if you are getting your degree in August of this year, you must not wait until after you've gotten your degree before you start preparing your material for application. It means already you have to start looking and searching. You should have even started even when you were still in level 1 to know where do I want to study and what do I want to study and why do I want to study that thing and why do I want to study that thing in that particular place. So you build up these things along the line, and it will be easier for you to write your motivation letter and your research proposal, and to approach the right university or the right country or the right continent or the right destination for yourself. Okay. Question. Welcome, Julius and Marinuel. Thank you, President Pavan and Sister Jeline. I saw you mentioning me in comments, but since I'm using a phone and it's so small, I cannot be able to react to comments by typing. So welcome, Emanuela. Thank you, Julius. Thank you. So now it's time for questions. I prefer anybody can ask any question about study opportunities, because today's session is more about discussion, and I prefer that it should really be a discussion with questions coming from the public and I answering them. You feel free to ask your question. You can still ask a question, and I discover that it is better to answer your question here or to answer it in private or to answer it in another session, but we just have to feel free and ask our questions. So I'm waiting for questions and still checking if there is some other question that I myself can remember. Thank you. Welcome, Letitia. Okay. No questions? No questions? Questions can be as general as possible, and I will try my best to answer within the limits of my knowledge. So feel free. You're welcome, grandson. So there was a question somebody asked me after I talked about destination New Zealand, PhD funding in New Zealand, and I mentioned a lot of scholarships for PhD studies in New Zealand. Somebody asked me a question specifically whether these scholarships were also available for studies in education, and by education the person means sciences of education. And my answer was this: for the part that I know, in New Zealand and in many other countries, including the United Kingdom and Canada and America, except otherwise when stated in the criteria, if a country says they are offering PhDs and along the line of criteria, they do not say it is limited only to engineering or it is limited only to pure sciences and biomedical sciences. If they don't make this kind of sentence, if they say any one, because sometimes they say subject area and they will write any, and then like in the case of New Zealand here, I want to be very specific about New Zealand since the question came up concerning New Zealand. So once they say any, just like even at the level of nationality, welcome Paddy. you have just come after Her Excellency, welcome. So I was saying that once even at the level of the nationality, when they say any, or when they just say domestic and international, it means that students from that same country will be applying, as well as students coming from elsewhere. There's some scholarships even both for master Patrick. So there are many scholarships I also noticed some scholarships within universities in New Zealand, some of their doctoral scholarships, where they give preference to their domestic students and or to students who have gotten their degrees, even if they are international students, but who have gotten their degrees from there. But if you don't see this written in their description of the scholarship, then you don't need to fear. It means that everybody will be treated equal. But if they also specify that no, we are going to treat our students differently, it means that if they have only 10 scholarships and international students apply even 100 of them, they will first of all try to offer the scholarships to their students before the international students. But when they just say domestic and international, it means that what they are interested in is just academic performance and the quality of the research. So, and everybody will be judged on the same criteria. And then coming to even talk about scholarships like the Commonwealth Masters scholarships in the UK, and there are others even in other countries, like there is another Commonwealth scholarship scheme known as Commonwealth scholarships for low-income countries, and then there are also Commonwealth scholarships in Canada and some Commonwealth scholarships in Australia. But taking the Commonwealth Master scholarships in the UK, generally there are specific conditions attached to them in the different universities offering them. Some universities will be offering only in one subject area, some will be offering in many subject areas, and they will tell you that okay, nationals of, let's say for example, they could say of Congo and Kenya will be preferred. It means that they will give they are clear from the outset, and so they will give preference to those people amongst many other people who apply. But if those people don't apply, then the next preference will go as people are deserve and merit. Just like there are some scholarships where they specify that preference will be given to female applicants. So all these things have to come into the bigger picture when we are applying. And so to come back to the question on education, scholarships on education, once it is not specified that the scholarship focuses only on a particular aspect of study or a particular field of study, either science or humanities or social sciences or technology, it means that the only thing you have to do as an applicant is go to the website of that university, check under it, and sometimes it is under admissions, sometimes it can be under academics, sometimes it can be under international, especially when you are checking universities in a country which is not yours already, or you fall under international students. But you need to just go to the various departments, check the department or the faculty of education. Sometimes they have a department, sometimes they have a faculty, sometimes they have a school. Go there, check the different degrees they are offering. Are they offering a PhD? And if they're offering a PhD, read carefully to see if what are the areas covered by their experts, because PhD usually means that a university focuses on or describes their PhD depending on the strength of their researchers. So if they have researchers who are interested in educational technologies, the use of ICTs in education, that will be part of their PhD. It means that they are ready to accept students who are applying to do their PhD under. Yeah, of course, there will be programs under translation and communication. They can always be. They can always be. And another thing I will tell you, but anyway, I will just hold on, I will come to your question, Natalie. Your question is welcome. Let me just finish this and come to your question. I'm happy you have raised it. So, the next thing will be to see who are those professors interested in educational research. And now, do you want to research something maybe concerning education of the children, the educational programs for children in Africa or for children in Asia, and etc.? Or do you want to research pure sciences of education and pedagogy, how new technologies are impacting and changing this? So you check. Or do you want to check maybe the impact of war and conflict? And these are things we don't really wish they happen, but they always happen. Sometimes somebody may decide, okay, I want to do a PhD on education in Cameroon or Nigeria or South Africa or Sudan, and I'm taking the perspective of seeing how conflict has influenced the performance of children, etc., etc. So with all these things at the back of your mind, you now check the profiles, the faculty profiles. You click, because if every university that has a good website which is well arranged and updated, you will now see professor this, and you now see he had a PhD from this. You even see where they got their own degrees, and you now see the papers they have written and published, the books they have published. and you also see even the areas they're interested to supervise students in them. So once you start seeing these things, you can have an idea. You also need to now know whether the information for the scholarship says that you need to contact a supervisor before applying, and most scholarships for PhD stipulate that the candidate should be in contact with a potential supervisor who accepts the project, because once that is done, you are kind of getting closer to almost getting the scholarship. But nothing is guaranteed until they have gone through the files and applications and have sent out their final decisions, because though you might have found a researcher interested in your work, there may be other people who have also found like you, and maybe their research proposals are either stronger than yours, or they may not be stronger than yours, but they may be in a particular topic or domain that that university or department has considered as priority for them within that specific time. So that said, I would think that basically the same thing will apply to the question Natalie asked about whether there are any programs on translation and communication. There will be many of them. There will just be many of them, Natalie. It's just a matter of searching. And one of the best destinations for PhD studies in translation, I think lots and lots of universities in the UK are offering PhDs and masters and even MPhils, masters of philosophy, the equivalence of DEA in Cameroon, in the field of in the field of translation studies, because this nowadays they have moved out, they are moving out. There is a tendency these days in the domain of translation that studies are moving out, and even at a faster speed, from translation as purely between language and language, but there are many other aspects of translation that are coming into play nowadays, how cultural translation and things of the sort. So generally you will see programs or departments of translation studies, and you will discover that, for example, there are people who may even decide to study different text by an author that have been translated into a given language. Maybe like I've noticed people studying translations of Baudelaire, Charles Baudelaire's poetry, and the person is researching different versions of Baudelaire's work that have been translated into English. And I was amazed when I attended an exhibition by that person, and I was saying that you can really have so many translators translating the same person's work into one language, and you may decide to check to study the different versions that have been produced and see what is in them. So within translation studies, you will definitely find translation and communication, translation itself, interpretation, etc. So and the steps I just listed would be helpful. First of all, to identify a potential supervisor, but then the next thing, which I may not talk about today, but time permitting I may still, will be the aspect of how to welcome Shea, welcome Bobe Foemba, welcome Shea Kuenti, and welcome Babe Olivandum alias Mungo. So all of you are welcome. So like I was saying, once you've identified the potential supervisor, it will be another process I will be talking about perhaps towards the end of today or in the next session, about really how to approach them and how to prepare before approaching them. Because that's very stiff too, very, very stiff. So for the people who asked me these questions in private, and which I prefer to answer here so that they help other people, I do welcome, and Brother Namse, welcome. I hope that the questions I've answered them in a way that is satisfactory, or at least helpful and useful. And yeah, I think about the downloading, Bobe, I think yeah, when I finish the video, I will publish it on Facebook. And the other day I checked. You can Google, once you go to Google, you can find and just Google how to download a Facebook video. They will give you the steps, though they are a kind of lengthy, but they will work. They will work depending on the appliance you are using. And another option will be that once this video becomes live and is shared, when I've stopped as it is live now, you can still save it. You can go to the options of this video as a post, and you decide to click on save, and you will save it so that you can often time and again refer back to it if you need to check it. So I hope my answer was satisfactory. satisfactory, Natalie, but if you want to push it further, I will welcome it. Thank you. Facebook says this is the most commented. This is your most commented on live video here. Thank you, Facebook. It's not about just the commenting. I just hope that the little bits of information I'm sharing with people are going to be helpful to them. That's the most important thing. So, any other question? Thank you again and again and again, Natalie, for the question today, because all the questions I've been answering so far are questions, kind of pre-prepared questions I came when I was already aware of them. So while I'm waiting for any other new question, I will continue to say that, well, in the next 5 to 7 minutes, I will have to be signing out, preparing for a next session. But if there is any other question, just bring it up and I will quickly answer. And like I was saying, while waiting for the new questions, I will still be building on your question, Natalie, and the question I was answering from the person about education, by saying that it is very important, very, very important to check your field of studies and know its current trends. You need to know the current trends in your field, because the world is changing every day and research in every field is changing according to the times we are living, and you will notice that in most fields of research today, multidisciplinarity, which is also called interdisciplinarity, is very, 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 very much okay. Thanks Bobby, I'm happy you got the answer. So interdisciplinarity is the catchword, the keyword nowadays. So research that is generally tailored to just one specific domain these days is less competitive as research that is interdisciplinary. So if you carve out a research project that can likely be touching not only your main area where you got your first degree or your master's, but such that they touch other aspects of, because the studies nowadays are tending towards seeing what becomes the fruit of the intersection between the sciences and the arts and etc. That's why you will hear about things like digital humanities today, where technology and the humanities are studied side by side to see how each is influencing and affecting the other. Just like you will hear about things like environmental humanities, which are basically the intersection, the interdisciplinary study between environmental issues and the humanities, because these are domains that hitherto, that is domains that up till now were not studied together. They were just like kind of anybody in his small corner. But that nowadays, these are the things that are really happening, especially with environmental sciences, and then other issues too, like medical humanities. So I'm just giving them as, and then in the domain of technology, the creation and development of applications like this Facebook that has made it possible for us to be communicating at very long distances. All these things have to be taken into consideration when we are thinking about designing our research projects, because these are the trends that are directing and influencing research presently. Yeah. And like coming back to Natalie's idea, just for example, you could be thinking about a translation project. Yeah, of course, but you may decide, because I think that in translation there is even the specialization in different technical domains of translation. You may decide to go into medical translation, and you may discover that you may also want to check and see how many medical translators are found in Cameroon or in your country of residence. So once you know that, you can also see that, okay, fine, it means that this is a sector where I can easily have a good job upon graduation. And you can also see that, okay, it means that if I'm building my research proposal now, I will see how to tap into the medical field, not just as the source of my translation material, but I can also be trying to see how my research, though in the field of translation, can really be able to help in the health sector of my country or any other country of the world. So I think these are just general guidelines and directives that, once taken into consideration, we can be designing much more appealing research projects. But I will be coming back to this in later videos, especially the aspect of how to get in touch with a potential supervisor and basic preparations to do about him or her regarding to their own research and our own research before we contact them. Okay, any questions again? If no other question, I will be preparing to sign out. You got any other question, Bobby? And I also like to just remind us, that following this session, if we gather or we get other questions after this, we can always keep them. Maybe try to also hint me, signal me about them, but I cannot guarantee that we'll have time to answer all questions, especially individually. But it is preferable to bring them up in subsequent live sessions so that we are using our questions and our answers, and in fact we are putting together all our resources to help as many people as possible and not just individuals. It's true that some can be answered in private, but those that I deem them necessary to benefit as many people as possible, I would prefer that we answer them here. I am getting set to be signing out, and I time and they washed. So next time we prepare more questions. Next time we prepare more questions. You didn't follow me right from the start. Okay, my first video, but I will check if I see the first video. If I see the first video, because this is just the second video I'm doing, if I see the first video again, I will try to tag you in the form of a comment below it so you can follow up and maybe watch it later too. I hope you got it, Bobby. Or did you mean that there is something I said here and you did not hear? Okay, no problem. Thank you everybody. Bye. See us the next time. I will always announce when I'm available to come online. Bye bye.